when the Morpheus character held up a battery and said, "The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery." It's exactly what the situation is. They are feeding off us. I started to see that the people I was investigating were taking part in satanic ritual, pedophilia too. And then you kind of remember that in the ancient world, all over the world, they were doing sacrificial rituals to the gods. The question was, why? Why? So then I came across the information of Robert Monroe, the guy who started the Monroe Institute. He was a kind of a media executive, radio executive, who popularized astral traveling. This is when you project your consciousness into this astral dimension and you can explore it. And that's what they don't want us to do, because obviously they want to keep us in the dark of all that, but you can do that. And what he said was that he learned in this astral dimension is that these entities are feeding off low vibrational human energy. He gave it a name. He called it loosh. Feeding off low vibrational human energy. So the next question is, okay, so how does this energy work? And I realized that before I came across Monroe's work. And that is that this is mainstream science. Every time we think or we have an emotional response, we are projecting a frequency. And that frequency relates to the nature of the emotional response and the nature of the thought. So what I call the perceptual field is the sum total of those frequencies that come out of the subconscious, which is massively actually more important in human control than the conscious mind. And you have a perceptual field that carries these frequencies. And so things like fear and anxiety and depression and resentment and conflict and regret, war, are all low, slow vibrational frequencies. And joy, happiness, love are high frequencies. So, when people say, when they're in a kind of a, quite a depressed state, they say, "Oh God, I feel so heavy today." Well, why do you feel heavy? Because your energetic field is being made more dense by the slow, low frequencies you're giving off. And then you have other people that say, "Oh, I feel so light today because I'm in a state of joy and happiness and love of life." That's because those frequencies are generating the opposite of density in your field. So you feel light. And these entities want that energy in its low vibrational state because they are in a low vibrational state. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. And so they are manipulating events through this global cult to generate a constant output from humanity of low vibrational, emotional, and mental energy, which they are feeding off. They have no interest, in other words, of putting humanity in a state of love and joy and happiness. They want the low frequency state, which is why they people talk about, they use fear to manipulate. Well, yes, they do. And not just to manipulate, but to get their bloody loosh. And I got this from many different sources, not just Robert Monroe, but I mentioned him as one. And then you come across the Gateway Project, which was a US military study based on the work of Robert Monroe. And what they did is they brought in other people that have this gift of being able to project their consciousness into the astral and explore it, because they were seeking to understand what was going on in that level. And they came across, and the CIA declassified the report on the study a lot of years ago now. And it talks in that report about the fact, first of all, they say they established that reincarnation was real, and also that so many of these people in the study had experienced reptilian entities in the astral that they gave them the collective name of the alligators. And so we have this this first Matrix movie where there was one scene in which this was perfectly described, when the Morpheus character held up a battery and said, "The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these, a battery." It's exactly what the situation is. They are feeding off us, but feeding off especially low vibrational mental and emotional energy, which we're giving off as our mental and emotional states generate it. So you got a war, a First World War, a Second World War. I mean, imagine the loosh that's generated in that war, those wars alone. You've got suffering, you've got deprivation. I mean, how much loosh has been created in Gaza since October the 7th? So these are not happening by accident. They're happening by design, and they are orchestrated by this global network of secret societies I call the global cult. And my next question, before I go into that, there's another point relating to loosh that's worth mentioning, very much worth mentioning, is that in the early 1990s, when I was uncovering this global cult network, I started to see that the people I was investigating and researching, like major players, were taking part in satanic ritual, pedophilia too, but satanic ritual. And you realize that actually this global cult is founded to a very, very large extent on Satanism and pedophilia. And so the question was, why? Why? What's all this about? And then you realize that they're taking part, these rich and famous people, in satanic human sacrifice rituals as well. And then you kind of remember that in the ancient world, all over the world, they were doing sacrificial rituals to the gods. They were talking about gods. Some of them had a particular god, but most of them were talking about the gods. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting when you look at the pantheons of gods around the world. You know, there's obviously the Greek pantheon of gods, the Zeus, etc., and there's the Egyptian pantheon, there's the Roman pantheon. But what you find is that all over the world, in different eras and cultures, they had pantheons of gods. Who were these gods as they were perceived to be? They're not, but perceived to be. They were the same gods, these astral entities, that they're doing their rituals to today. Only in the ancient world, when it was acceptable, they were doing it openly. Now they're doing it in secret because we've passed the point of human maturity, at least massively, where that's not acceptable anymore. And then I looked at the sacrifice rituals that the ancients were doing and saw that they were claiming that they were the sacrifice ritual was a gift to the gods. And so then another question, keep asking them, what do the gods get out of that then? What's the gift? And then you put all this together and you talk, as I have, to Satanists all over the world, most of which actually were taking part against their will, but some that saw the light eventually. And you realize that Loosh is the gift. Because what they're doing is they're putting the sacrifice through horrors that generate enormous terror in the victim. Now, terror is an immensely powerful low vibrational energy. And while they are conducting the ritual in the human realm, the entities in the astral are feeding off that terror that's coming off the victim. Because if I look at someone and they're in an intense emotional state, then I will see from their facial expressions and their body language what state they're in. But I won't see the energy coming off them relating to that state because it's outside visible light. It's an astral phenomenon. So this stuff is pouring into the astral as we experience these emotional and mental states, and they're feeding off it, and they're feeding off it particularly in the intensity of a sacrifice ritual. And what the terror does is it triggers an infusion of adrenaline into the blood. And the Satanists, been described to me many times, the Satanists then drink the blood of the sacrifice, and to them it's like a drug. They get high. It's been described to me how when they drink it, they go bloody crazy.
Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy, but most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.